We're focusing on Jesus. We're looking at his life. We're looking at his teaching. And in particular, we've been looking at the claims that he makes about himself, about the fact that we end up making Jesus smaller than he is. And I just want to point out today, there's a whole lot of times that people heard Jesus teach and they just looked around and said, wait, did he just say that? Did he just say what I think he said? One of them is in John chapter 8. So John 8 opens with Jesus teaching at the temple, and there's the Pharisees are trying to trap him, and initially there's this little scene in which they bring to him a woman that's been caught in the act of adultery, and they ask whether or not she should be stoned. And Jesus has his reply, which is stunning, right? I mean, his answer to that puts them on their heels because they realize just how gracious, but how thoughtful and how wise, and yet how committed to the law he is. It's all very undoing to them. And then in verse 46, Jesus claims to be perfect. Which is shocking. I mean, if you're in an argument with somebody, a disagreement with somebody, and as part of their rebuttal, they say, "By the way, I'm perfect." What would you say? You're perfect? Are you kidding me? I mean, those are this sort of changes the nature of the debate that you're having. But he asks them. He just said, "Hey, can any of you prove me guilty of anything? What have I ever done that is wrong?" So then in the following, what follows, there's this interaction that Jesus has with the Pharisees, and it's sort of long, but it gets bolder. The discussion gets sort of more animated and a little bit more important until there's a real shocking end to this, where Jesus says, "I tell you the truth, before Abraham was, I am." And they pick up stones to stone him because he's just claimed to be God. He was not, when he says this, when he's having this, and he says, "I tell you the truth, before Abraham was, I am." He's not just claiming to predate Abraham, which of course is just crazy, and how how can that happen unless you're eternal and unless you're God? But he's also, in doing it, he frames that statement. He says, "Before Abraham was born, I am." He's taking the I am, the tetragrammaton, the covenant name of God, the holy name of God, the name that the Jews would not say because they didn't want to be guilty of breaking the third commandment and taking the name of the Lord in vain. So the part of the way they did that, I mean, I think it's a little sideways to the thrust of it, but sort of a literal way they didn't want to do that was to ever mention the name of God in some sort of lesser way than they should. And so they just didn't say the name, Yahweh. That's the Hebrew, which we translate I am. But when Jesus says this, right? I mean, that all may be lost on a 21st century reader. You don't get all that's going on in there. It's not lost on the Pharisees. They understand exactly what Jesus has done, and that's why they pick up rocks in order to kill him. They cannot tolerate to listen to Jesus commit blasphemy. So let's just be clear. Jesus claims to be God. Not God-like, not God-light, not God with a small g, not the vice president of heaven, not next to God, not on an important assignment for God, but he claims to be God. He claims to be fully God. He claims to be equal to God the Father. He claims to be eternal. He claims to be God. He accepts worship. He forgives sins. He says he was present at creation, that he would return at the end of the age to judge everyone. So Jesus claims all power and authority in heaven and earth are his. You cannot make bigger claims than Jesus makes. And John 8 is an incredible passage in which it drives home that. Jesus claims to be God. Have a good day.